Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this one might be a bit on the shorter side today, but I wanted to review a show that this, I think, came before I started doing the bi-weekly reviews of the seasonals. This show a couple years ago I found and really enjoyed. And you can kind of tell from the title what you're in for. It's Ameku M.D, Doctor Detective. And much like, I would say, Apothecary and, Arte, Freerin, a lot of stuff like that. I've definitely seen a lot of shows recently where one main lead, Inspector follows the same thing, where like strong female leads with different personalities, whether they're eccentric or not, kind of pull the entire show along through strength of personality. I would say that is kind of the main strength of this, and would be the reason to test it and try it. Ameku Takao, she's voiced by Jocelyn Harris. Her kind of personality is loner, but opinionated. Reads a lot of books. Very freaking smart. I mean, you'd have to be. Again, this is kind of following the Sherlock Holmes model of storytelling. And, she's in this department of this medical facility known as investigative pathology. I was trying to say that fancy and it came out as but investigative pathology is pretty much her system, where she has such a skill or superpower, or just reads and studies so much that she's able to do what no other doctor can do in that facility, because doctors do a lot of amazing things. But when there are very weird circumstances to very weird things, she's usually called into different departments to handle the situation. And again, by sheer force of personality, because she's a bit curmudgeonly and blunt, she will not mince words with people, whether that's good or bad. So she's at odds with some of the staffers. And, one in particular is more of her assistant, Yuta Kanashi, who she calls Coterie, so I will keep calling him Coterie as well, voiced by Gerard Castor. And they are kind of the two main leads. There's a few other characters here and there, but it's mainly about those two. And really, it's about one. Suffice it to say. Coterie is the straight man to her weirdness. And it's not that she flies off the wall or anything. This is not a Mao Mao situation. This is not Freerin, getting the weird, stuff here and there. This is just some lady who says what she thinks and does things in such a different way, but does it so well, it's kind of magic in a way. But it is storytelling. It is solving problems. And what I like is that the doctor detective stuff isn't just localized in a hospital setting. They get involved with murder mysteries and, talk to police. And police are also in the same situation. The detectives are either skeptical assholes or accepting, older guys who are just like, I know you're good, so that's why I'm calling your help on this one, And I think the cool thing is they run the gamut of different types of situations, and also veer into not only in one instance a like strange occult mystery, but they also delve into a lot of sad stuff. And I think my favorite episode, and I'll talk about that one specifically later, is it's a mystery, but it's also related in just very dire and also heart-wrenching circumstances. That one I will spoil, or at least spoil to an extent, because, I mean, this is the one where Ameku really kind of lowers her guard a bit. Because by and large, she's pretty smug and self-assured, and it was nice to see that she wasn't. But again, you have these like 4 or 5 mini stories taking up these 12 episodes, and the dialogue I find very fascinating because I took anatomy courses, physiology, exercise science, stuff like that back in college. So I understood a lot of the medical terminology and a lot of things they were saying. And, you know, if you've seen shows like this elsewhere, I'm sure it's not really a surprise. But they don't hide away. You know, they're legitimate terms and they're done pretty much the way you're supposed to, though, you know, sensationalized because it is a show, right? But it's able to contrast the weirdness of being a very pulpy detective, Sherlock Holmesian thing where, oh, she knows the answer, but she'll kind of take you to a place and then show you and tell you at the same time, and then there's the reveal, and then here's my proof, and here's why, and here's how you did it. You know, I mentioned that Inspector had this problem where Iwanaga already kind of knew the answer and the lie, and you were just kind of retracing all the steps. So she had already solved it. You know, she was going flashbacky. This one at least kind of is kind of half and half. Like, you know that Ameku usually knows the answer here and there, and whether she's caught the perpetrator or not, she's still kind of in that phase of, well, I'm working with the detectives to answer the thing, and I need you to take me to this place so that I can solve the mystery for you, and then sometimes have the, you know, the culprit nearby so that they get caught in the act, or they say something stupid, or they try to run away but they get kidnapped or arrested or whatever, you know, stuff like that. And I like that method more because it's more immediate, where you do run into the situation with mysteries where you have to solve the thing. So it's kind of like Knives Out, where Benoit Blanc already knows the answer. He's already studied the answer, but he wants people to be there when he answers it, and at least those involved. And I like the immediacy and impact of, oh, they're caught in the act, and there's the reveal, but here's also why, and there, you know, because that's the traditional method, right? As opposed to the way Inspector did it, which was kind of front to back, sort of, you know, or back to front sort of thing. It's like, if you've already answered it, where's the suspense? But the cool stuff is solving a mystery about this Yakuza dude who died, but he has blue blood. Like, how would that even happen? But who did it to him? Another one is involving spontaneous combustion of people in this, I would say, this archaeological dig or archaeological setup, and people of a certain house or bloodline are responsible. So everybody's saying it's a curse. So Ameku has to figure out, okay, there can't be curses. This is dumb. This is wrong. And you're confronted with like these mystical circumstances, almost like the Phoenix Wright or Danganronpa situation, where it's like, there's nothing mystical about it. This is just a strange weirdness, and we have to explain the hows and the whys because there's no actual fucking curses. You know, one of those kinds of situations, because this isn't science. Well, I mean, it's science-y, but it's not science fiction, and I think it straddles that line there. The last set of episodes is about a man who drowns, but there's no water around him. You know, he drowns in a locked room mystery. So how does that happen? And some of those, like, you can kind of figure if you have the medical knowledge. I had some, but I didn't. You know, so the mechanics of, like, oh, it happens because of this thing or this thing. You know, you learn quite a bit of medical mumbo jumbo and cool stuff you can learn about the human body, because it's such an amazing thing when it works, and it's such a stupid thing when it doesn't. It's a perfectly balanced machine that has to work properly, or weird shit like this can physically happen in strange circumstances. That's kind of the bend of the show, is the absurdly strange looks mystical and powerful and crazy, but then she solves it with the medical knowledge of saying, well, this is the medical explanation, the science explanation around why such a weird thing can, in a 1 in a million shot, happen to people. And it's really good. But I do want to spend a few minutes, and this is where the spoilers come in, of Ameku kind of breaking down for an episode or two and just not being the most self-assured person in the room. She just like, I don't like this. I don't want to deal with this person. She goes to a children's ward, and she gets this call in about this setup where these kids are dealing with like minor heart attacks and things. And there's also some bullying of this other kid who's suffering from a terminal illness. And the kid is claiming that he sees an angel. Ameku remembers because she, I don't think diagnosed him, but used to meet with him and read him a story. So you can already tell where this is going. Like, you just hear those words terminal and you're just like, there's no way this ends well. And it just matters like how they do it with class, I think, because there are some ways you can, like, there are some situations where anime isn't always in the right and doesn't always tread lightly. This is one where, like, you kind of have to. Like, it does enough with the surrounding stuff around it, but then when it comes to it, you're still like, this is a terminal patient. Like, there's only so much you can do, and there's only so many ways you can go about this. But the kid is being bullied by these other kids, and part of the mystery for her is not just like what's going on with the kid and talking with him again. It's, why are these kids suddenly having these like weird fanatical spells and fainting and sometimes having attacks and stuff. Turns out they were doing it to themselves. They were messing with the kid as a way to get messed up themselves and then blame it on the kid. Like, what's the kid gonna do? He's in a hospital room. You bullying him because he's in that condition or because of what he's saying is really fucking classless. And thankfully, that's kind of the approach that the show takes and Ameku takes as well, because they know that these other kids are assholes, and it's up to them to finally like understand, okay, well, this is why this is happening to you. It's not some weird curse. It's not some weird blessing thing from the gods or the angels. No, it's you physically causing problems yourself, and that makes them feel even worse. And so they realize, like, well, yeah, we're causing physical ailments to ourselves to get sympathy. I'm like, why? I don't fucking know. You're dumb. So that stuff settles itself. And that's fine. But the meat of the episode is Ameku facing just this situation of this kid who doesn't have a lot of emotional support or emotional contact with anyone other than his parents. She either diagnosed him or at least was there around the time and was like a friend who would be there for him in times. Like the last 5 or 10 minutes is just her facing kind of knowing that as good and as smart as she is, there are some situations you can't solve, and a terminal illness is one of them. And, it also helps that Kotari is just like, well, you've solved every other problem, but even you have limits. But nobody's going to begrudge you if once in your life you show weakness, or once in your life you have something to center you and ground you in reality, that this is what being a doctor or this is what being a nurse is like. We are not special. We can only do what we can do. And I like that they take that tack before they get to the major scene of Ameku meeting the child again. And sorry, I'm even getting kind of emotional. I haven't seen that show in a few years. But, stuff like that, situations like that, I don't really like seeing. But I like when they're done well or done with not just fanatical weird spiritualism or stuff like that. I mean, in the kid's example, like, he believes an angel is going to take him to heaven. Like, that's probably what a kid would expect, right? That's a way he can cope. Again, I don't know how realistic that is. I've never dealt with it. I really kind of don't want to. It's not my purview. But just imagine being in that situation, or if having somebody who is, knowing that, like, this is what doctors and nurses deal with on a daily basis. Getting emotional over patients that you've met for years, and then some of them, they don't make it. Sometimes you live in a ward, like you work in a ward, like a hospice ward, where you just accept it, and that's part of it. God forbid, I don't even know. I wouldn't even want to know what that would be like. So this is one of those rare cases where I'm kind of faced with those emotions while in the guise of this goofy comedy in spots, but you're hitting this, like, frickin' brick wall of, okay, not only is this character not winning, there's no real way to win, but she does the right thing in the end, because it is more just a matter of being a civil, upstanding person and getting through your bullshit and facing somebody who does respect you and is looking to you for emotional support in their last hours. So she does. And, you realize that Ameku, despite her bluster, does have weaknesses and, is a normal person in that guise. So episodes like that, and sometimes those happen. The episode, like episode 7 of Dawn to Dawn, or the crazy episode, I mean, in an extreme example, like Cursed Witch Elena, like Wandering Witch Elena, where she was like, they had the text bumper in the screen and it was like very vulgar and very disturbing, for that episode. And if you knew that episode, I talked about it in an earlier ep. But, like, going off of the bounds of what is normal to present something that is very just heart-wrenching and emotional, to change the dynamic of a story, even subtly, so that other episodes can stand up, because they knew this one was probably the toughest one to get through, because sometimes you have a feel for, like, when you have a story and it just works and it's like it's going to elevate the material. That was one of those. I'm not saying the other episodes aren't good, because they are, but they all feel the same. With that story arc, I think Ameku turned into a person rather than a character, and her interactions with everybody around her made it make more sense, because sometimes that's lost in these shows because they're so fantastical. You forget that the best characters sometimes have hang-ups and screw-ups, and you have to just deal with it, because nobody's perfect. So that's how it happens. But again, if you haven't seen the show, I think it was on the lower end of, like, notoriety. I don't know how popular this show is, but I definitely found it very good, especially even from a mystery novel-esque perspective, the Sherlock Holmesian aspect, mixing in that technical knowledge that was enough of it to where, like, I understood it. It's not quite Star Trek language, though. It's real life language. So if you have any sort of medical background, it'll work for you. But be aware that there is a lot of it. You may not catch all of it. You may not need to, because the show still works whether you understand all the physiological mumbo jumbo or not. So would I recommend Ameku M.D? Absolutely. I found myself glued to the TV, just watching it every week and being like, yeah, this is really freaking good stuff, and I want to keep watching it. I probably rewatch it again when I get to my next rewatch anime phase, because I'm getting to that point where my backlog is not as big as it used to be. So rewatching shows, and especially the good ones, is probably what I'm going to end up doing. And this is one that I want to rewatch. But that'll do for today. And let's see what else is on the docket going forward, because spring's around the corner. I don't have a full list of the shows that are debuting, and I don't really want to spend much time on it. I might do it next week. Once things start debuting, maybe I'll get into those. I don't know. But there's still a lot of stuff from winter that I need to finish. Some shows have finished, some have not. So there's that. But we'll get to East Origin. Then there's Be the Beginning, Mega Man 5 and Mega Man X5. And then Apothecary Diaries. Hopefully Lee and I have time to do a podcast on Apothecary. If not, well, I'll find something else to do. It's no big deal. I can always do it some other day. That's the benefit of having stuff. I can always do stuff later. So nothing's ever set in stone, nor should it be. But that'll do for today. I will see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.